Hello subscribers. I wanted to give an update on my CRPG Fortaeverse and show you some progress. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new party here. I'm going to create a new party member. Let's go ahead and make myself a mercenary. Okay, as I discussed before, there's many attributes in the game. And so I've been working a little bit on pulling in icons and other graphical components to make it more friendly, more game-like. And that'll continue as the game goes on. Right now it has a very vanilla look to it. Now I assign skills. I have a total of 40 points. So the mercenary class has a whole bunch of weapon skills by default. And so I get to choose where I want to spend these, just like any typical RPG. And I'm just going to make several members here. Let's make Lori Psionic. So what happens is you begin with a 100 bonus points to distribute. And all this is up in the air, but this is the way I have it right now. And what happens is, based on your race, it tries to meet the minimum requirements for a given vocation. In this case, the Psionic needs 115 intelligence, 100 will, 100 endurance, and 100 charisma, I believe. I'm not sure about this. This may be the racial beginning. Elves may start with 100. Humans start with 80 on everything. And basically every race starts at the lowest possible value, and then it bumps up the attribute values to meet the minimum for that particular class. So for example here, 130 is the limit of intelligence that an elf can have. And logic, the minimum is 80. So when I hit minus here, it will not go below that. And what I'm going to do is show you a class or a race that doesn't meet the minimum requirements for vocation, and you'll see what happens. And as you can tell, I'm not anywhere near done creating the skills that are required, because the Psionic will have more than just the size skill. Max is out at 40. That's the most you can assign in the beginning as you create a character. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of points left, and I need to figure out what to do about this. Like maybe it'll give you an experience point bonus. I'm not really sure yet. Maybe it'll be handled later on. But let's create a character using a race that is rather silly for a vocation. A troll would be a good example. So let's create a troll named Gandalf. And we're going to make them a wizard, which obviously a troll would not make a good wizard. Okay, so what's happened here is it shows you have minus 65 points. And the maximum intelligence a troll can have is 60, which is below the minimum intelligence requirement for a wizard. Doesn't mean you can't be a wizard. You are still a wizard. You're just going to be a terrible one, especially in the beginning. So as you can see, 3 attributes here have underqualified. So now when I hit continue, what has happened is I was penalized tremendously and lost a ton of skill points there. So normally you get 150 skill points to distribute. Since I was at minus 65, when you go to the skill point page, it takes the number of negative and multiplies it times 2, I believe. So I lost 130 points. So I'm only left with 10. because Wizardry already hogged up 10 since it starts at 10, which again, you can't go below that. So as you can see, it'll affect the number of skill points you get. You'll also begin at level 0 instead of level 1, and you'll have some negative experience points. So it'll be a lot harder to level up. But it doesn't mean you can't make that kind of character. Okay, so let's just create a few more here. Let's create another caster. Let's make them Thaumaturgist. So as you can see, the Beacon required 70 points just to qualify to be a Thaumaturgist. So now, from this point, I could increase whatever I wanted. You cannot go below the minimum for that vocation. But you can raise anything until you hit your racial limit. And just to save time, I'm not going to assign all these points. Okay, that's good enough. I'm just going to do 4 characters. So now we're going to continue. We're going to continue with our Daryl party. And we're presented the main view here, the game screen. Now you're going to notice some interesting things here. So in wizardry type fashion, toward the left and toward the right are going to be your party members. And so here I only have 4. I list the name and the vocation. And then I'm only listing 3 special attributes. This first one is your physical health, which is your hit points. The second one is your stamina. And the third one is your mana, which is your spell points. In this game, it's called mana. And as you can see, even someone like a mercenary has mana. They just don't have the ability to use it. It's basically like an untapped potential in your body. And the reason is because later on you might change vocations and suddenly become a wizard and start training and learn how to use the mana. So I'll probably hide this if you can't cast any spells, but for right now, that's why that's on there. And take a look at our troll wizard. He has negative 72 mana, so he cannot possibly cast a spell right now. It's going to take quite a while, or special items or something to boost his mana up below 0 so he could actually cast spells. So that's how that's going to work out. The Psionic actually lost 2 mana points here, and this Thaumaturgist here gained 8 because once again you begin with 80. So based on whatever attributes that vocation needs, for some reason Lori lost 2. I don't know if her intelligence was too low or one of the other attributes. But that's what happened here, and he got a bonus. Okay, now in the middle of the screen here are the party actions, I'm calling them. When you click one of these buttons, the entire party does this action. For example, if I click this hourglass, the party is resting. It will continue to rest until something either happens to wake them up or I command the party to stop doing that. This one is a sleep action, which is basically a more intense and more dangerous way to rest, but it results in much improved regeneration rates. This is going to be search, which I haven't implemented yet. And of course we have movement here. Now party members can also perform actions which have icons next to them. So for example, I'm going to click on the little lightning bolt here next to Daryl, and you'll see these are the current actions that he has the ability to do. And I just realized you cannot see that window. Let me see if I can get OBS to show it. Okay, that's better. The window is actually popping up right next to where I clicked, but you can't see that because of the limitation of viewing windows in OBS. So anyway, there's going to be a concept of default actions, which I'll talk about later. But otherwise, you can perform an instant action. So for example, I can tell Daryl to search. And then what will happen here is on the main screen, it says Daryl is searching. And once again, this OBS is having an issue. So let's move that back up there like that. Okay. So you can see it says Daryl is searching. So he'll continue to search until I stop or give him another action to perform. Now let's do a caster, for example. Let's see if I can get this pop-up window to show once again. Yeah, OBS is having a lot of issues with this. What I may end up doing is just doing a window. Hold on one second. Okay, that's better. I told it to do a monitor just so you can see. Okay, so once again, I'm going to click over here by Elrond to tell him to do an action. As you can see, it popped up the window, and he has more actions here. He can cast a spell, which if you do this one that has a ... it's going to change and let you pick a specific spell from another menu. It's basically drilling down into another menu. Or there's going to be a way to just cast directly given spells. And I haven't figured out if I want to do this based on popularity or what. Because otherwise the scroll bar is going to get quite large. You know, scroll down pretty far. But I'll figure that out with time. So for example, he has two spells. He has Bless and Minor Regeneration. So I could just choose the spell and click OK and it would finish. Right now it's not implemented. And that's why up here it just says unsupported. So we'll just have him sleep for now. So once again, Elrond is sleeping. So the main engine for actually performing the actions and having them work off a timer on the server based on real time is working. I will show you by moving. So I'm going to click to go east. So it says the party is traveling east, and as you can see, my X coordinate is increasing. Now watch the picture up here. So once I reached location 100, essentially, what happened was I found a new area, and there's something special there. This happens to be the city hall. And so eventually there's going to be options that are presented when you reach a certain area or find a place that you haven't been before. And I'm going to probably have it similar to how Darklands works, where you have a menu system and you pick from a bunch of options on what you want to do. But that's still to be decided. So anyway, that's the main aspect of the game and how it's working. I am adding specific actions as well. Like I just clicked the magic wand and that makes it only show cast type actions. So I'm probably going to have, attack and very common things clickable instantly so you won't have to drill into menus or have pop-ups. Similar to these actions for the whole party down here. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about some of the details in the game and the aspects and the code behind the scenes. So as you can imagine, I'm putting a lot of detail into this. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is called magic effects. And basically, there are different types of resistances for magics, just like a lot of games. And some of them are hierarchical in nature. For example, there's a resistance type of temperature. But then you'll also have resistance types of fire, heat, cold, which are subsets of temperature. There's other resistance types that are damage types, like physical forces, crush, cut, pierce damage, which inherit from physical force. There's going to be injuries, bleeding, dismemberment, all kinds of different things. Your respiratory system, there could be attacks toward that. Air attacks, chemical attacks. Same with circulatory system. There's going to be fear, lights, blindness, sound, deaf, heat, all kinds of different resistance types. And the way this works is magical effects are basically raw arcane magic, and spells are built from these. For example, a base magical effect is the ability to summon something. Another type is damage or heal, or maybe something that does armor-related things. Teleportation, modifying a location. There's all kinds of arcane abilities. Now, to give a more specific example, a magic effect of darkness will modify a location. So you may be able to cast a spell that does darkness in a 20-foot radius, for example, so that anything that went into that area would experience darkness and not be able to see. Conversely, maybe you have a light spell that you cast that would then brighten up a dark area, whether it's nighttime or because of someone casting some type of spell that made that area dark. So as you can see, once again, those two types inherit from modify location. Then there's going to be things like damage zones, which again is modifying a location, or ground damage zone more specifically, which means if you're walking on the ground, you will experience damage with this type of magic effect. And then it gets more specific. It's a physical ground damage zone, which means it'll do physical damage. Or maybe fire ground damage zone. So if you're walking and you have low fire resistance, you'll take more damage. If you're not walking, let's say you're flying, this will have no impact because you're not on the ground. So once again, getting really specific. There'll be magic effects like modifying one of your skills, whether increasing or decreasing, or attributes like strength, speed, physical health, whatever. There is a new spellcaster type that I'm introducing into the game called an Arcanist, and they will actually be able to create spells themselves, and they will draw from all these magical effects. So, for example, they have the ability to do a spell modifier spell and can amplify or decrease the effectiveness of certain spells. Resistance modifiers, armor modifiers like increasing, decreasing. The ability to curse items or imbue them with magic. Essentially be able to create charges inside items. The ability to put certain conditions on life forms, like blindness, paralyze them, things of that nature. There'll be spell effects or magic effects that can do damage increases or reductions, of course. So here's some examples of some condition type spells: blind, fear, irritate, nausea. There's all kinds of them. In fact, let me see. Condition types. I know it's in here. There we go. Okay. So there's going to be positive conditions, negative conditions, and neutral conditions. There's not too many neutral conditions. Enraged is one, which has positive and negative effects. But there's some base conditions, once again, like the inability for you to perform an action or inability to control your actions. And there's definitely a difference. So being paralyzed is an example of inability to act, period. You can't do anything. Or if you're petrified because you've been transmuted and turned into stone. That's another example. Now, inability to control your actions, for example, is the state of being affixed or hypnotized, charmed, influenced, confused, all kinds of them. Insane, afraid, nauseated, possessed, and there's going to be more. Another example, inability to act, is you're unconscious. And there's different states of unconsciousness. There's comatose. You're dead. Obviously, you're not conscious if you're dead. You could be destroyed, which is even further than dead. Sleep. Then there's inability to move, which is different than inability to act. For example, you're restrained. Maybe you're held by some vines or something like that from a magic spell. That means you can't move, so you can't perform a moving action, but maybe you could cast a spell while you're standing there. Next, we have deteriorating type effects, such as being poisoned, diseased, burning, maybe you're suffocating. There's all kinds of them. And those will cause damage to various systems over time. Dissolving causes damage to your physical health, whereas suffocating causes damage to your respiratory system health and your stamina. Bunch of negative conditions like being dizzy, irritated, weakened, etc. Okay, so let's go back to the magical effects. See if there's anything else here I want to talk about. Okay, so like I said, there's all kinds of damage types. Okay, so now we'll talk about spells themselves. So, each character class, I keep calling it class, each vocation has 2 spells that it will start with minimum. I haven't decided if there's going to be more yet, but you will get those 2 spells automatically. And I'm just going to show you the different realms there are. There's Arcane, Alchemy, Divinity, Druidry, Enchantment, Evoking, Geomancy, Necromancy, Psi, Sorcery, Thaumaturgy, Thermo, Kinesis, Voodoo, and Wizardry. And so all of those are used by only one particular vocation. So since you can have 6 party members, obviously you can't have all these at once. Now, you could always change your vocation and have casters that pick up multiple realms over time. But if you don't do that, then you're going to be stuck with maximum of 6 if you had all 6 spellcasters in your party. They're all going to have advantages and disadvantages. So now, the Arcane Realm starts with 2 spells. Initiate Magic Bolt, which does magic damage to 1 life form at a range of 20 feet. The next spell they have is Minor Spell Effect Enhancement. That's what I was talking about earlier, where the Arcanist can enhance spell effects. So for 60 seconds, it'll give a 10% bonus to any casting done by the life form that's been targeted by this spell. Next, we have Alchemy, which of course the Alchemist has. They get Acid Arrow, which does acid damage. As you can see, I have the ability to dictate what type of resistance a given spell has. So it'll do 10 damage, range 100, so it's a much farther range, and it travels in a line. I'm getting so detailed that I can specify whether the spells are going to travel in a line, a cone, if they're instant, so they just automatically hit the target, or how they're going to work. This one travels in a line. So if there's something blocking the target from the caster, they will get hit potentially by this projectile. Okay, they also have Irritation, which will irritate the target, which is an area. If we look, instead of it being a life form, we're hitting a location. So you target a location. It has a 10-foot radius. It's going to do this for 3 minutes. So for 3 minutes, they'll be irritated. And the irritation condition is, of course, going to affect certain attributes and abilities. Resistance modifier is also going to be used in certain cases. That'll determine whether the targets will receive a bonus to resist or a negative to resist it. Next, Divinity Realm. This is the priest. So their first spell is Heal Minor Wounds, which has a heal effect on physical health. So as you can imagine, based on how I've done this, spellcrafters can make healing apply to basically any kind of attribute. It doesn't have to even be physical. It could be a mind, like intelligence or charisma-based attribute. Extremely flexible. So anyway, range of 20, 1 life form, heals 8 damage. Oh, and by the way, this is 3 mana. These other spells, 4, 3, 4, and 3. So the starting spells, the maximum any of them will take is 4 mana. So if you start with 80 mana, you could cast this spell 20 times before you can't cast it anymore. Okay, priests also have Light Aura, which will cast the light spell on a target location, 20-foot radius, and it's going to last for 30 minutes. So for 30 whole minutes, that area will be lightened, even if it was dark or from nighttime, or if it was darkness because of a spell being cast there. Next, Druidry. The Druids get these, obviously. Bark Skin increases your armor by 3 on one target, range of 50, and it lasts 10 minutes. That's pretty self-explanatory. Next is a spell called Thorns, which is a physical ground damage zone spell. So you choose a target area up to 20, well, it is 20 feet radius, range of up to 50 feet away. This lasts 30 seconds, and what it does is 3 points of physical damage for anything standing on the ground there, or anything that walks into that area. So each round that they're there, they're going to take 3 damage. Right now, a round is 5 seconds. And I'm trying to decide if I want to keep it that way or if I'm going to expand it to 10 seconds. But as of right now, it's 5 seconds, which means this would be 6 rounds. So if you had, let's say, 10 monsters in this 20-foot area, you would do a total of 30 damage if they had no armor on their feet, because this is going to be foot damage. So you do 30 total damage, potentially 6 times. So if you had some monsters that didn't have any foot armor stuck in that region, they would end up taking a tremendous amount of damage. But this is a very temperamental spell because you have to target certain areas, and there's potential for the AI to make the monsters go around it or get out of the area. So anyway, that's what that spell does. Next, we have Enchantment. Fling Tongue is the first spell for this. This targets a weapon. And what it does is causes the weapon to do extra fire damage for 10 minutes. And its target is one weapon. And it does 2 extra damage. So, as many swings as you get with that weapon, it will do 2 damage every time. Of course, you have to hit the enemy. But you could cast it on multiple targets. If you cast this spell, let's say 3 times, it'd be 12 mana. And you'd have a total of 3 party members doing this, and it lasts for 10 minutes. So I'm going to be working a lot on the balancing of this game because I'm very particular with making sure things are balanced. But that's the way that spell works right now. Next, the Enchanter has a spell called Boots of Speed. What this does is any footwear can receive this bonus. And what it's going to do is increase your speed attribute by 40. Now, a way to think if that's any good or not is a human starts with 80 speed. and they can reach a maximum of 120 normally. So if you had 80 speed and you cast this spell, the human will be at 120. That's their peak speed. That's a big bonus. If they were already at 120 speed, this would give them 160. It lasts 5 minutes and target a life form up to 30 feet away. Next, we're to Evoking, which is the Evoker class. I keep saying class. The Evoker vocation. So first thing you can do is summon Rat. That would be Matt Barton's favorite spell. If you don't know who Matt Barton is, go look him up. He's got a great YouTube channel. So anyway, you summon a rat, which is going to be a pretty weak creature, but it'll last for about 5 minutes before it runs off. And it will fight for you for that whole time. Next, they can cast Parasite, which will cause an infection on a single life form for up to 5 days. Well, it will last 5 days unless they can fight it off somehow. And what's going to happen right now, it's going to decrease their circulatory system health by 0.1 per round. So this is a spell that you could cast on someone and leave them to die, essentially. So this would be great for quests where you have to kill someone, let's say, for example, and you don't want to actually have to deal with them. You could secretly cast a spell, run away, and they will slowly take damage over time and eventually die off if they can't be healed or can't resist it. But that's an Evoker spell. Next, Geomancy. So the Geomancer has this. First spell is Blinding Dust. You'll obviously try to blind the target. The target gets a 10% bonus chance to try to resist. Range of 30. And it'd last 30 seconds. They will be blind. So that would be very detrimental in a battle, because for 6 whole rounds, they're going to be blind. Static Discharge. This is an electric damage spell. It'll do 10 damage. And if you have metal armor on the target, they will take more damage. And I'll discuss that at a future point about materials and what they're made out of and how they'll take less or more damage based on that. Next is Necromancy Realm. They begin with Terror, which will cause fear. 20% bonus chance to try to resist. It has a range of 50 that targets 1 life form. It'll last up to 5 minutes. Chilling Bones is the next Necromancer spell. It does 10 points of cold damage to a single life form up to 50 feet away. Now we're going to get to Psionic Spells. So they have the Psi Realm. Mind Blast, that's their first spell. That does mental damage up to 100 feet away. This one does not target or go in a line. Neither did the Chilling Bones, by the way. These are instant, so they automatically hit the enemy. They still get a chance to resist. So whatever mental resistance you have a chance to resist this. And they would take 10 damage based on the resistance level. Next, the Psionic has actually 3 spells. They get Detect Lie, where they can detect if an NPC or someone you're talking to is lying. Essentially what it does is it gives them a 50 skill level bonus on lie detection skill. And you can target. So if you already had someone that had lie detecting ability, you could cast it on them and it would boost it by 50. Or if you don't, and the Psionic just wants to cast it on themselves, they will get a 50 level skill, and it lasts 5 minutes. Same concept, Detect Trap. This lasts 30 minutes, so you can be out exploring for 30 minutes, and you'll be detecting traps at level 50 skill. Okay, next we have Sorcery. Mana Drain is the sorcerer's first spell. It will drain 15 mana from a life form. So very situational, range of 100, but it's a much greater effect because it is more situational. Darkness, it's the opposite of the light spell that the priest had. Theirs don't last anywhere near as long though. This lasts 60 seconds. And essentially you could use that in combat to blind anyone in that target area, keep them there. Now we're to Thaumaturgy. Their first spell is Bless. Now interestingly enough, if you look here, there's 2 magic effects with Bless. So Bless increases confidence and it increases spirituality. Increases both of those for 1 hour by 30. That's the current setup of the Bless spell. Next, they have Minor Regeneration. And this spell has 4 magic effects that happen simultaneously. All of them attribute modifiers once again. And what they do is they increase your regeneration rate by 25% on physical, circulatory system, respiratory system, and nervous system. So as you rest for up to 1 day, you will have increased regeneration rate in that target. So it's an alternative way to heal, and it'll heal systems that the priest wouldn't heal. Next, Thermokinesis. Flame Arrow. This is the biggest damage at the first level. Does 15, and the Thermokinesis is going to be obviously related to temperature. So their spells are more limited in nature, but more powerful because of that. So anyway, Flame Arrow does 15 fire damage. Minor Fire Resistance affects 1 life form. 25% chance to resist fire. That's your bonus. And it lasts for 30 minutes. So if you cast that on all party members, it would take 6 times 3 is 18 mana. And that would last for quite a while. And your whole party would have essentially a 25% boost in fire resistance. Next, we're at the Shaymin, who has Voodoo Realm. First spell is Hex, which is a negative attribute modifier, and it affects 3 attributes: perception, dexterity, and agility. All of those are decreased by 30, and it lasts an hour. Next, Nausea. This obviously is a nausea condition. 20% chance for the bonus chance for the target to resist. Lasts 5 minutes. Affects 1 life form. Finally, we have the Wizardry Realm. They get Flame Dart, which only does 8 damage, fire damage, but it's only 2 mana. This is a light spell. This allows wizards to cast these quite frequently and without running out of mana. And Sleep, which of course puts an enemy to sleep for up to 60 seconds, which is very detrimental to the life form, but they get a 20% bonus chance to resist. I have other spells here beyond that I'm just putting in as I think of them, and I will continue to do that. There's going to be a ridiculous number of spells, but once again, the Arcanists will be able to create their own spells, and there's going to be the Artificer who can make magical items, which will also be able to invoke special spell magic effects. So that's all I'm going to talk about today. I'll get into more in the future, but I've made huge progress, and it's really fun and exciting. I hope you guys are excited to hear more about this. If so, please leave comments in the comments section. Tell me what you want to hear more about, or things of that nature, and I would love to discuss them further. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.